A map drawn in 1513 seems to show a continent hidden under ice. This single artifact hints at a staggering possibility that sophisticated mapmakers charted the world long before recorded history. By the end of this journey, you will see the ancient world through an entirely new lens, one where geography itself becomes a profound mystery. We will uncover who these forgotten cartographers were and examine the impossible knowledge they may have possessed. What does a Babylonian clay disk reveal about the entire cosmos? How could massive desert lines in Peru serve as a map for the sky? The evidence is fragmented and often controversial, pointing to a grand puzzle scattered across millennia. What do you believe is waiting to be rediscovered about our own past? A map is the oldest form of story ever told. It is a narrative of space, a memory of place, told not with words but with lines and symbols. Long before ink met parchment, the human mind was already charting the world. Our earliest mapmakers were not scholars in quiet libraries. They were the ones who walked the farthest paths, the traders who memorized mountain passes, the sailors who read the language of waves and stars. Their survival depended on an intimate, living knowledge of the land. Archaeologist Dr. James Harrod describes these first maps as cognitive, internal models held in memory and shared through gesture and song. This was a geography of experience, not measurement. It was a story of here to there, of where the fresh water flows, of where the dangerous spirits dwell. The modern map is an object, a precise tool of coordinates and scale. The ancient map was a process, a living dialogue between a person and a place. What does it mean to chart a world you cannot fully comprehend? You do not need to understand the curvature of the earth to know that following a certain river leads to a valley of plenty. You do not need a compass to learn that a particular star, rising just before dawn, signals the time to cross a desert. This fundamental shift in perspective is crucial. When we look at the strange artifacts left behind, we are not looking for the neat grids of a modern atlas. We are looking for the echoes of those internal stories, the moments when that deep, experiential knowledge was finally translated into something physical, something meant to last. And it is in those rare, tangible objects where the true mystery begins. The story begins not with a chart of coastlines, but with a vision of the entire cosmos. In the ruins of a library in ancient Babylon, archaeologists uncovered a small, circular clay tablet. Etched into its surface is a diagram that has become known as the Imago Mundi, the image of the world. Created around the 6th century before the Common Era, it is one of the oldest surviving attempts to depict the entire known universe. At first glance, it seems almost childish, a simple circle with squiggly lines and odd labels. But to dismiss it is to miss its profound purpose. This was not a map for navigation. You could not use it to sail from one city to another. Instead, this clay disk was a map of meaning. It was a philosophical and religious statement, a way for the Babylonians to understand their place in creation. The world it shows is a flat disk, with the great city of Babylon proudly seated at its very center. Radiating out from this heart are regions with names like Assyria and Urartu, real places that were part of their world. These lands are all surrounded by a circular band labeled the Bitter River, a symbolic ocean that marked the edge of the habitable world. And beyond that river, in the tablet's outer triangles, are strange, mythical lands described simply as regions where the sun is not seen. This was the edge of everything. The Imago Mundi brilliantly merges the tangible with the conceptual. It includes real geographic knowledge, like the correct position of a mountain range, right alongside legendary realms from their stories. For the Babylonians, geography and cosmology were inseparable. The map answered the deepest questions: where do we come from, what surrounds us, and where does our reality end? It tells us that their greatest concern was not plotting a trade route, but defining the order of the universe itself. This artifact is a stunning clue. It proves that by this early date, humans were already creating sophisticated models of their world, but these models served a different master. They were tools for understanding, not for travel. Yet, the very existence of such a refined cosmological map hints at something tantalizing. It suggests a long tradition of spatial thinking that must have preceded it. The scribe who pressed stylus into this wet clay was not inventing the idea of a world map from nothing. He was likely copying from, or simplifying, a far older and more elaborate tradition of knowledge that has since been lost to time. If this is what survived on baked clay, what wonders were painted on perishable parchment or whispered in schools now turned to dust? The Babylonian world map stands as our first great enigma, a beautiful reminder that every map is ultimately a mirror, reflecting not just the land but the mind of the culture that drew it. From a cosmic diagram, we travel to a landscape that is itself a map, etched into the very skin of the earth. In the high, dry plains of southern Peru, the desert holds a secret only visible from the heavens. At ground level, you see only shallow trenches, scratches in the rusty gravel, paths leading seemingly nowhere, but ascend above, and the entire valley transforms. Those scratches resolve into staggering geoglyphs, colossal images of a hummingbird, a spider, a monkey, a whale, stretching for hundreds of meters across the arid floor. These are the Nazca lines, and they present our second profound enigma. Were these monumental drawings a form of prehistoric mapmaking, not of the land but for the sky? For decades, researcher Maria Reich dedicated her life to studying these lines. Her pioneering theory suggested they were a giant astronomical calendar. She proposed that the long, straight lines pointed to the rising or setting positions of the sun, moon, and stars on significant dates like the solstices. The animal shapes, she believed, might correspond to constellations as perceived by the Nazca culture. In this view, the entire desert plateau becomes a massive, stone chart of the heavens, a permanent record of celestial cycles critical for agriculture and ritual timing in an unforgiving environment. But other interpretations point back to the Earth itself. Some researchers argue the lines are ritual pathways, walked during sacred ceremonies to connect with deities or ancestors. Even more compelling is the idea they map something invisible, the hidden networks of underground water sources that were the literal lifeblood of the Nazca people. The precise placement of certain figures and lines could correspond to subterranean aquifers, creating a giant ceremonial guide to the most precious resource in the desert. This theory bridges the practical and the spiritual, turning the landscape into a sacred hydrological map. The construction itself is a marvel of simple precision. The Nazca people created these lines by removing the dark, sun-baked surface stones to reveal the lighter-colored soil beneath. The designs were likely first plotted at a small scale on prepared surfaces, then scaled up using a system of ropes and stakes, a testament to sophisticated communal planning and geometric knowledge. They did not need to see their work from above. They needed only to trust their mathematics and their shared vision. So, what were the Nazca truly charting? Were they mapping the dependable rhythms of the stars above, or the life-giving waters flowing deep below? The most powerful answer may be both. The Nazca lines stand as a breathtaking fusion of cosmology and survival. They represent a culture that did not separate the celestial from the terrestrial. Their map was not drawn on clay or parchment, but on the land itself, a permanent prayer and a practical guide, written in lines so vast only time or the gods could read them in their entirety. This enigma forces us to expand our definition of a map once more. It is not always a portable object. Sometimes it is the ground you walk on, a sacred text written across miles, meant to be understood by the community over generations, or perhaps by viewers we have only just become. The open ocean is the most featureless map imaginable, a vast blue plain with no roads, no landmarks, only the endless horizon. Yet, for millennia, the Polynesian voyagers did not see it as empty. They saw it as a well-marked highway, and their map was drawn in the night sky. Picture a master navigator, a wayfinder, standing on the deck of a double-hulled canoe. He does not look down at a compass or a chart. He looks up. The dome of stars above him is not a random scattering of lights. It is a precise and rotating clock, a compass, and a chart all in one. He knows that each star is a beacon, rising and setting at a fixed point on the horizon. To sail toward the island where the star Arcturus rises, he simply keeps its light directly ahead until the first scent of land whispers on the wind. This is celestial cartography, the art of using the heavens to chart the earth. Modern Hawaiian wayfinder Nainoa Thompson, who revived these ancient practices, describes it as a living, breathing science. The star compass was not just about the stars themselves. It integrated everything: the direction of ocean swells that bend around unseen islands, the flight patterns of specific birds that nest on land but feed far at sea, the color of the clouds, the taste of the water. This was a dynamic, multi-layered mental map, constantly updated through observation and passed down through chants and stories across generations. This knowledge was not unique to the Pacific. On the other side of the world, the great stone circles of Europe, like Stonehenge, may have served a similar profound purpose. While their exact use is debated, their precise alignments with solstice sunrises and major lunar standstills suggest they were monumental calibration tools. They provided a fixed terrestrial reference point to track the cyclical movements of the sun and moon, allowing a culture to anchor their calendar and, by extension, their understanding of seasonal change and direction. These structures encode a map of time itself, which is the first step to mapping space. The oral traditions of countless cultures are filled with this celestial data, instructions woven into myth. A story about a hero following a certain star might actually be preserving a vital navigation route. This was a global positioning system written not in silicon, but in stone and memory. It raises a staggering question. If ancient cultures possessed such sophisticated knowledge of the stars and currents, and the daring to use it, how far did their voyages truly take them? The Pacific was settled from island to island across distances that stagger modern sailors. What if other seafaring cultures, whose records have long since perished, achieved similar feats in other oceans? The whispers of lost lands and forgotten voyages begin here, not as fantasy, but as a logical extension of this proven, stellar mapmaking. The stars guided them, but to what shores did they ultimately arrive? Plato's story begins with a warning. In his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, written around 360 before the Common Era, he recounts the tale of a magnificent island empire called Atlantis. This was no ordinary place. He describes it as a vast, circular island beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we call the Strait of Gibraltar, a powerful naval civilization rich in metals and advanced engineering. Its capital was a marvel of concentric rings of water and land, a geometric masterpiece. Then, in one terrible day and night of earthquakes and floods, the entire island was swallowed by the sea, vanishing forever. For centuries, people have searched for its physical ruins. But what if we are looking for the wrong thing? What if Atlantis is not a place to be found on the ocean floor, but a memory to be understood? The core of Plato's story is a cataclysm so complete it erased a civilization and its knowledge from the earth. This idea of a great flood washing away an advanced culture echoes in countless global myths, from the sunken continents of Mu and Lemuria in Pacific and Indian Ocean traditions to the ubiquitous flood stories found on every inhabited continent. Could these all be distant, distorted recollections of a shared human experience, not of a single city, but of a profound loss? Modern geology suggests such events are not mere fantasy. Around 6,150 years before the Common Era, a massive underwater landslide off the coast of Norway, known as the Storegga Slide, triggered a tsunami that devastated coastlines around the North Sea, swallowing inhabited land. Similarly, the Black Sea flood hypothesis proposes that rising global sea levels around 5,600 before the Common Era catastrophically breached a natural dam at the Bosporus, turning a freshwater lake into a saltwater sea and inundating vast, settled shores in a relatively short time. For the prehistoric communities living there, it would have been a world-ending event. Their homes, their fields, their entire world simply vanished beneath the waves. And with that world vanished all their knowledge, their routes, their maps of a landscape that no longer existed. This is the true power of the Atlantis legend. It is a parable about the fragility of knowledge itself. Imagine a network of skilled prehistoric mariners, traders who moved goods and ideas between coastal communities. They would have possessed detailed mental charts of coastlines, safe harbors, and island stepping stones. Then a cataclysm strikes. The islands sink, the familiar coastlines are redrawn, the trading hubs are gone. The survivors are left with only stories, tales of a rich land that was lost, of ancestors who sailed to places you can no longer find. Over generations, the practical navigation guides morph into legends of golden cities beneath the waves. The story of Atlantis, then, might be the ghost of a lost map. It represents the terrifying possibility that entire chapters of human exploration and cartography have been erased by rising waters, leaving only a haunting echo in our oldest stories. This blurring of legend and lost geography forces us to look at the next set of artifacts with a more open mind. If such sophisticated knowledge could be lost, could fragments of it have somehow survived against all odds, waiting for us to recognize them for what they are? The quiet halls of a Yale University library hold a document that could rewrite history. It is a simple piece of parchment drawn in a medieval style showing Europe, Africa, and Asia. But in the upper left corner, in the vast Western Ocean, lies a rugged island labeled in Latin Vinlandia Insula. This is the Vinland Map, and its date is the source of a firestorm. The script on the map claims it was drawn around the year 1440, more than 5 decades before Columbus sailed. If it is authentic, it is not just a map. It is a medieval copy of a much older Norse chart, physical proof that knowledge of North America circulated in European monasteries long before the age of exploration. The debate surrounding this single piece of parchment is one of the most intense in historical scholarship. On one side are those who see it as a brilliant 20th century forgery, created to capitalize on the value of such a discovery. They point to scientific analysis of its ink. In 2002, researchers at University College London found that a key component of the drawing ink, anatase titanium dioxide, was in a synthetic form not available before the 1920s. This seemed like a smoking gun, proof the map was a modern fake. Yet the story is not so simple. Other studies of the parchment itself, including carbon dating, place the animal skin firmly in the 1400s. The wormholes in the map even match those in a genuine medieval manuscript it was once bound with, suggesting they spent centuries together. How could a modern forger acquire centuries-old parchment and bind it so perfectly with a genuine book? The map's content is equally puzzling. It shows Greenland as an island, a geographic fact not confirmed by Europeans until the 19th century. Yet it also depicts Greenland with a strangely accurate north-south coastline, a shape that seems anachronistic. Supporters of the map's authenticity argue it perfectly echoes the Norse sagas, the Viking accounts of Leif Eriksson's voyage to a land of wild grapes around the year 1000. They propose a scenario: a Norse explorer returns to Greenland or Iceland with a rough sketch of the new coast. That sketch is copied and recopied, eventually making its way into the hands of a European cartographer who incorporates it into a larger world map, not fully understanding what he is drawing. The Vinland map forces a difficult question. When evidence is shrouded in such profound controversy, how do we separate the noise from the signal? The very intensity of the debate can obscure a simpler, more profound possibility. Even if this specific parchment is later proven to be a forgery, the idea it represents, that pre-Columbian knowledge of the Americas existed in some form, is supported by other, less disputed evidence. The controversy itself becomes a kind of map, charting our own deep reluctance to redraw the boundaries of accepted history. It shows how the desire to debunk can sometimes be as powerful as the desire to discover, leaving genuine mysteries trapped in a scholarly limbo. But while ink on parchment can be forged, stone cannot. From this world of disputed documents, we turn to a form of mapmaking carved in granite, messages from the ancient world that were always meant to be permanent. Stone is the most patient of historians. While parchment burns and clay shatters, a message carved into a granite cliff can wait for millennia to be understood. Scattered across every continent are these silent testimonies, petroglyphs and pictograms etched and painted by our distant ancestors. For generations, scholars viewed them primarily as ritual art or spiritual symbols, visions of the other world. But a compelling thread of research suggests many of these works served a far more practical and astonishing purpose. They may be the world's oldest surviving topographic maps. In the Italian Alps, the Badolina rock bears a stunning example. Carved during the Bronze Age, its surface is a complex schematic of geometric fields, dotted with small cup marks representing huts, all connected by a network of lines that clearly depict pathways and boundaries. This is not a picture of gods or animals. It is a plan view, a diagram of a lived-in landscape, a record of territory, water sources, and community space etched directly into the living rock. It was a permanent deed, a communal record meant to outlast any individual memory. Anthropologist David Lewis Williams, while famous for his work on the shamanic origins of cave art, also acknowledged this practical dimension. He noted that the human brain has a profound, innate capacity to translate spatial experience into symbolic representation. A wavy line does not need to be a serpent spirit. It could simply mean this way to the river. A series of dots might not be a constellation, but a record of days' journey to a known hunting ground. These stone canvases became a durable database, a library without walls where vital geographic knowledge was stored for the entire community and for generations yet unborn. Decoding them requires us to shed our modern expectations. A mountain might be represented by a simple triangle, a valley by a U shape, a trail by a meandering line. The map was not meant to be to scale in a mathematical sense, but in a relational one. It showed what was connected to what and in what order you would encounter it. This turns a silent cliff face into a whispered set of instructions. Follow the line of circles past the 3 peaks to find the watering hole. Avoid the area marked with the crossed lines, for the footing is bad or the spirits are restless. These maps blended the practical and the sacred seamlessly because to our ancestors there was no separation. A hunting ground was both a source of food and a place of power. A water spring was both life-giving and potentially divine. So the map recorded it all, the physical resource and its profound meaning. This raises a tantalizing possibility. If a single rock could map a valley, could a network of such sites, spread across a vast region, chart an entire territory? What if the symbols we see as isolated art are actually fragments of a much larger, distributed cartographic system, a prehistoric atlas written in stone across hundreds of miles? This idea of a grand, fragmented map leads our search to its most famous and controversial destination, a document that claims to show the world not as ancient people knew it, but as they could not possibly have known it. A single line of text written in Ottoman Turkish may hold the key to our entire mystery. In the margins of his famous map of 1513, Admiral Piri Reis left a startling note. He explains that this chart was not the product of his own voyages, but a compilation. He writes that he consulted and synthesized around 20 older source maps, some of which were, in his own words, dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. That is a claim that echoes across the centuries. It suggests the admiral had access to cartographic knowledge that was already ancient in the early 1500s, knowledge passed down through a fragile chain of copies and translations. The map itself is a breathtaking work of art, showing the coastlines of Europe, Africa, and the newly discovered Americas with remarkable, though not perfect, accuracy. But it is the lower section that ignites the fiercest debate. Below the Atlantic, the map depicts a rough, detailed landmass, complete with what appear to be rivers, bays, and mountain ranges. Many researchers, looking at its shape and position, have argued it represents the northern coastline of Antarctica, specifically the region known as Queen Maud Land. The shocking implication is that this coastline is drawn seemingly without its present-day covering of ice, a mile-thick glacial shell that has smothered the continent for millions of years. How could a 16th-century admiral, using source maps from Antiquity, possibly depict a continent humanity would not officially discover for another 300 years and show it in a state that last existed in a prehistoric epoch? This question was taken up most famously by Professor Charles Hapgood in the 1960s. He proposed a radical theory. Hapgood suggested that a highly advanced global seafaring civilization existed thousands of years before recorded history. This culture, he argued, possessed sophisticated knowledge of astronomy and mathematics, allowing them to map the world with startling precision. Their cartographic legacy, he believed, survived in fragments, copied and recopied by later cultures like the Greeks and Arabs, until these degraded copies finally found their way onto Piri Reis's drafting table. In this view, the map is not a work of fiction, but a palimpsest, a medieval parchment overlaid with the ghostly traces of a lost world's geography. Mainstream scholarship approaches the map with deep skepticism, offering alternative explanations that are equally fascinating. One strong possibility is simple misidentification. The mysterious southern land could be a distorted, speculative version of South America, its coastline mangled by the imperfect merging of multiple source charts. Classical geographers from Ptolemy onward long believed in the necessity of a large southern continent to balance the landmasses of the north, a theoretical place they called Terra Australis Incognita. Piri Reis may have been influenced by these speculative traditions, filling the empty southern ocean with a landmass born of philosophical necessity, not direct observation. Furthermore, accurately determining longitude was an immense technical challenge not fully solved until the 18th century, making any claim of prehistoric precision in this regard highly suspect. Yet, even with these caveats, puzzling details remain. Certain coastal profiles on the disputed section do bear an uncanny resemblance to subglacial scans of Antarctica's bedrock, contours hidden under ice that we have only recently mapped with radar. Could these be extraordinary coincidences, the result of an artist's pen wandering to create plausible-looking bays? Or do they represent the faintest, most corrupted echo of a geography once known, then forgotten? The Piri Reis map does not provide easy answers, but it forces a profound question about the transmission of knowledge. If a culture did achieve such mapping feats, what tools could they possibly have used? The answer may not lie in advanced technology as we understand it, but in a forgotten way of seeing the world, one that combined celestial observation with a patient, generations-long accumulation of experiential data. To understand that, we must look beyond the map itself to the mind that could have conceived it. Mapping a continent without a compass seems an impossible task. Yet the evidence, however fragmented, suggests someone did exactly that. If the Piri Reis map and others like it hold even a grain of truth, then we are forced to ask a staggering question: what instruments did these forgotten surveyors use? Their toolkit could not have contained satellites or precision timepieces. It must have been built from the materials and principles of their world, principles we are only beginning to appreciate. The most stunning clue to their potential sophistication comes not from a map, but from a corroded lump of bronze recovered from an ancient shipwreck. The Antiquity mechanism, dated to the 2nd century before the Common Era, is often called the world's first analog computer. Through a complex arrangement of precisely cut gears, it could predict the positions of the sun, moon, and planets, forecast eclipses, and even track the cycles of athletic games. This device proves that ancient Greek artisans possessed a profound mechanical understanding of celestial mechanics. It is not a surveying tool itself, but it represents a pinnacle of technical thought. If such intricate knowledge existed for modeling the heavens, is it so difficult to believe that similar, perhaps even more ancient, principles were applied to measuring the Earth? The foundation of all large-scale mapping is geodesy, the science of measuring the planet's shape and curvature. How could an ancient culture approach this? One method relies on pure astronomy. By carefully measuring the angle of a star, like the North Star, from two different locations a known distance apart, you can, in principle, calculate the Earth's circumference. The Greek scholar Eratosthenes is famously said to have done this in the 3rd century before the Common Era, using the sun's shadow in wells at Syene and Alexandria. His result was remarkably accurate. This demonstrates that the core concept of determining the Earth's size through geometry and observation was within reach of ancient intellects. But what about the tools for the ground survey itself, for marking those vast distances between points? Here, the theories become more speculative but deeply intriguing. In the mid-20th century, engineer Alexander Thom conducted exhaustive surveys of hundreds of Neolithic stone circles across Britain. He proposed that their builders used a highly accurate standardized unit of measurement, which he termed the megalithic yard, equivalent to about 2.72 of our feet. More controversially, he argued these sites were not just rough ceremonial rings, but precise astronomical observatories, aligned to the solstices and lunar standstills with engineering precision. If a widespread culture could standardize measurement and orchestrate the construction of such geometrically complex sites across a landscape, it implies a society with shared knowledge, capable of large-scale, coordinated projects. This organizational skill is a prerequisite for continent-spanning cartography. Could they have used something as simple as sound? Some researchers point to the acoustic properties of certain megalithic sites, suggesting that resonant frequencies or echoes might have been used for alignment or communication over long distances, a form of sonic surveying. The even more controversial concept of ley lines, those hypothetical straight alignments between ancient sites, while largely dismissed by mainstream archaeology, persists in popular imagination as a ghostly network. Whether real or imagined, it speaks to a deep human desire to see intentional order in the ancient landscape, a grand design etched into the Earth itself. The search for their instruments, then, is ultimately a search for their intellect. It asks us to reconsider the cognitive capabilities of prehistoric societies. They may have possessed a different kind of genius, one deeply attuned to patterns in nature, to the rhythms of the sky, and to the geometry of the land, a genius that expressed itself not in digital code, but in stone, star charts, and stories. This line of inquiry inevitably circles back to the most elusive question of all. If such a culture existed, capable of these feats of measurement and memory, who were they? Their identity remains the final and greatest blank space on the map. The identity of those ancient mapmakers remains a ghost in the machine of history, a signature erased by time. But sometimes a name does surface, attached to a document that defies easy explanation. In 1558, a Venetian nobleman named Niccolò Zeno published a small book that contained a map and a fantastic story. He claimed it was based on letters and charts discovered in his family's attic, documents detailing voyages made by his ancestors, the Zeno brothers, in the late 1390s. According to the narrative, these Venetian sailors ventured far into the North Atlantic, reaching lands with strange names, Estatiland and Drogeo. The accompanying map shows a strangely detailed North Atlantic, with coastlines for Greenland, Iceland, and a large, ambiguous landmass to the west that many have interpreted as a crude depiction of North America, perhaps Newfoundland or Labrador. This is the Zeno map, and it presents our fifth enigma. Is it a clever forgery, a sincere misunderstanding, or a corrupted copy of something much older? The map is a fascinating patchwork of precision and fantasy. Its rendering of Greenland, while misshapen, shows an awareness of its eastern fjords that seems too specific for pure invention in 1558. It labels Iceland correctly and includes the mythical island of Friesland, a common cartographic error of the period that was likely borrowed from other charts. But then there are the mysterious lands. Estatiland is described as a civilized place with its own language and libraries, while Drogeo is a wild southern territory. Scholars have long debated their possible identities. Estatiland could be a distorted account of the Norse settlements in Newfoundland or Labrador, heard second-hand by the Zenos or their sources. Drogeo might represent a garbled version of voyages further south along the North American coast, blended with native tales or pure sailor's yarn. The most compelling theory is that the Zeno map is not a single lie but a palimpsest. Niccolò Zeno, living in the era just after Columbus, may have genuinely found fragmentary family papers describing northern voyages. To make sense of them and to boost his family's legacy, he likely combined those fragments with contemporary Portolan charts, snippets from Norse sagas circulating in the North Atlantic, and the inevitable tall tales told in waterfront taverns. He was compiling a medieval collage, not forging a modern document. The map's value lies in this very blurring. It shows how geographic knowledge in the pre-modern world was a fluid, living thing, passed from sailor to scribe, translated from Norse to Italian, shrinking and expanding with each retelling. A precise sketch of a Greenlandic fjord from a Norse hunter could sit on the same parchment as a mythical island from a classical text, with no clear border between fact and legend. This process of compilation and corruption forces a deeper, more provocative question. If such fragile knowledge survived at all across centuries, who was preserving it? This hints at the potential role of closed networks, secretive guilds, or monastic orders that acted as repositories for forbidden or heretical geography. Cartographic knowledge was power, and power is often guarded. The Zeno map, whether hoax or hybrid, stands as a testament to the dark waters of transmission, where a single thread of truth could be woven into a tapestry of speculation, waiting for a later age to try to untangle the threads. A Phoenician captain would rather drown than let his ship's log fall into enemy hands. This document, known as a periplus, was more than a captain's diary. It was a living map, a sequential list of landmarks, sailing directions, distances between ports, and notes on hidden shoals and safe anchorages. Possessing one gave you the keys to an entire trade network. For the Phoenicians, whose wealth and power were built on their mastery of the Mediterranean and beyond, this knowledge was a state secret guarded as fiercely as any treasury. They were among history's first great cartographic guardians, and their methods set a precedent. To protect their lucrative routes, especially to sources of tin in Britain and amber in the Baltic, they actively spread disinformation, telling terrifying tales of sea monsters and boiling waters beyond the Strait of Gibraltar to deter competitors. This culture of secrecy reveals a crucial truth. In the ancient world, geographic knowledge was not public information. It was a form of concentrated power, and its transmission was carefully controlled by elite, often closed groups. Temple priests in Mesopotamia and Egypt held the secrets of celestial observation and land measurement, knowledge intertwined with religious authority. Royal navigators in distant kingdoms served only their king, their mental charts of ocean currents and star paths dying with them if not passed to a chosen apprentice. This system of guarded transmission is the fragile thread upon which our entire mystery hangs. We see its legacy clearly in the medieval Mappi Mundi, those beautiful, symbolic world maps created in European monasteries. Drawn on vellum by scholarly monks, these were not maps for travel. They were maps for salvation, illustrating a Christian cosmos with Jerusalem at the center and paradise at the edge. Their purpose was theological, not geographical. Yet, in the process of meticulously copying and recopying these works over centuries, monks became the unintended guardians of ancient geographic data. Classical place names from Ptolemy, snippets of lore from Roman itineraries, and fragments of much older knowledge were preserved within the biblical framework, like fossils embedded in stone. The knowledge survived, but its original context and practical purpose were often stripped away, repurposed for a new worldview. This is the double-edged sword of secret transmission. While it protects knowledge in the short term, it makes that knowledge incredibly vulnerable. When the Phoenician civilization faded, their precise periply did not enter a public library. They likely rotted in a forgotten hold or were burned to prevent capture. When a navigator's guild dissolved without a full initiation of new members, centuries of accumulated sailing lore vanished into silence. When a monastery library burned, unique copies of ancient texts turned to ash. Each collapse was a data loss event, erasing unique chapters from the world's atlas. The maps that do survive to tantalize us, like the Piri Reis or the Zeno, may therefore be mere echoes, distorted reflections of a far more comprehensive secret atlas that once existed. This leads to a breathtaking hypothesis. If such a guarded, global corpus of maps did exist, what might it have contained? Could it have charted the icy northern reaches visited by Norse explorers, or the vast southern ocean speculated upon by Polynesian wayfinders? Might it have included accurate coastlines for lands that would not be officially rediscovered for a millennium, preserved not for public use, but as the prized, proprietary intelligence of a network of seafaring elites whose names are lost to history? The empty spaces on our historical maps may not signify ignorance, but rather the profound success of ancient keepers in guarding their most valuable secrets. A sweet potato does not care for our maps or borders. This humble root vegetable, native to the Andes Mountains of South America, presents one of the most delicious puzzles in archaeology. By the time European explorers arrived in the Pacific, they found Polynesian cultures from Hawaii to Easter Island already cultivating it, calling it by names like Kumara and Kumala, words strikingly similar to its Quechua name Kumara. The plant cannot float across an ocean on its own. Its presence on islands separated by thousands of miles of open water suggests a human hand carried it there long before any recorded voyage. This is not an isolated clue. From the stepped pyramids of Mesoamerica to those of ancient Egypt and Cambodia, from the practice of mummification found in both the Andes and the Canary Islands, to the striking similarities in certain mythological stories across continents, we are confronted with a tapestry of parallels that challenge the idea of a world where ancient cultures developed in total isolation. The question is not whether we have a single, definitive map of a transoceanic voyage, but whether the cumulative weight of these connections suggests a world where such voyages were possible, and thus where the need for long-distance charts was very real. This is the realm of diffusionist theory, the idea that cultural traits can spread through contact. Explorer Thor Heyerdahl famously demonstrated its physical possibility by sailing his balsa wood raft, the Kon-Tiki, from South America to Polynesia in 1947, using only winds and currents available to ancient mariners. While his specific thesis about Polynesian origins is not widely accepted today, his voyage proved a crucial point. The oceans were not impassable barriers but potential highways, even with Neolithic technology. More recent evidence comes from quieter sources. Genetic studies of chickens show lineages in Chile that appear to predate European contact and share links with Polynesian breeds. Linguistic analyses point to potential, though highly debated, shared words between native South American and Polynesian languages. Even artifacts whisper of strange journeys. The colossal stone heads of the Olmec civilization in Mexico, with their distinctive full features, have led some scholars to speculate about very early transatlantic influences, though most archaeologists attribute their style to local artistic tradition. Similarly, scattered finds, like what appear to be Roman coins in the Americas or Chinese anchors off the California coast, are often dismissed as misidentified, hoaxes, or isolated losses from much later, undocumented wrecks. The mainstream view remains cautious, emphasizing independent invention, the powerful human tendency to arrive at similar solutions to similar problems, like building pyramidal structures for ceremonial height. Yet the possibility persists, humming at the edges of history. If even a few of these contacts were real, they imply a prehistoric world far more interconnected than our textbooks often allow. Think of it not as a single scheduled route, but as a sporadic, accidental network. A storm blows a Polynesian voyaging canoe off course, carrying it to the coast of South America. After a season of exchange, the survivors borrow seeds and stories for the long journey home. A Phoenician trader, pushing beyond the Pillars of Hercules for tin, is caught in a current that carries him to a new, forested land. He returns with tales and perhaps a rough sketch on a wax tablet, a secret his guild protects. These events would be rare, extraordinary, and poorly documented, but their very possibility reshapes the context for our mapmakers. It means that geographic knowledge could have been a global, if fractured, conversation. A chart drawn in Alexandria might contain a coastline described by a Celt who heard it from a Norse trader who bartered with someone from a land no Roman had ever seen. This fragments and echoes model helps explain the most perplexing elements in the controversial maps, the accurate pieces floating in a sea of distortion. They are not forgeries of a whole truth, but copies of whispers, and if knowledge flowed, how was it recorded between people who shared no common tongue? This points to the potential for a universal symbolic language, not of letters but of icons, a cartographic shorthand, a wave pattern for ocean, a triangle for mountain, a circle for a city, a dotted line for a route. Such symbols, carved on a portable token or drawn on treated hide, could convey essential information across language barriers, becoming the building blocks for a lost world map compiled from 1,000 such messages. The evidence does not give us a clear answer, but it opens a door. It asks us to consider that the blank spaces on our historical maps may not have been blank in reality, but were simply pages torn from a global archive we are only now learning how to read. A spiral carved into a stone in Ireland bears a striking resemblance to one painted on a cliff in New Zealand. Across continents and millennia, our ancestors returned to the same visual motifs, not as coincidence, but as a profound form of communication. Before written language, before even the first stylus touched clay, humans were developing a universal visual vocabulary for describing the world itself. This was symbolic cartography, a language of the land written in spirals, concentric circles, and the enduring image of the world tree. These were not mere decorations. They were the building blocks of a prehistoric map-making tradition that conveyed meaning across language barriers and preserved knowledge across generations. The spiral might represent a journey, a vortex of water, or the cyclical nature of life and seasons. Concentric circles could depict a settlement, a sacred mound, or ripples expanding from a central point of power. But the most powerful symbol of all is what mythologist Mircea Eliade termed the axis mundi. This is the cosmic axis, the world mountain or world tree that stands at the very center of creation, connecting the heavens, the earth, and the underworld. In countless cultures, from the Norse Yggdrasil to the Siberian world tree, this central pillar serves as the anchor for all reality. In a symbolic map, this axis mundi is not just a spiritual concept, it becomes the central landmark from which all other geography radiates. It is the heart of the territory, the point from which direction and distance gain their meaning. This transforms how we look at ancient art and architecture. A petroglyph showing a large circle with smaller circles around it might not be a random pattern. It could be a schematic map of a central village with its surrounding satellite camps. A series of wavy lines leading to a stylized tree might not be abstract art, but a ritual map guiding initiates to a sacred grove. This symbolic lexicon made maps incredibly portable and durable. You did not need to carry a large, literal depiction of a coastline. You could weave the symbols into a basket, tattoo them on skin, or dance them in a ceremony. The knowledge was encoded in cultural memory, activated by the sight of the symbol. It was a mnemonic system for the landscape. Think of it like modern highway signs. A stylized tree does not mean there is literally one specific tree ahead. It signals a forested area or a park. A wave symbol indicates aquatic terrain. Ancient cultures used a similar shorthand, but for their entire perceived universe. This helps explain the recurring motifs we see globally. Different cultures, facing similar needs to describe water, mountains, shelter, and the sacred, arrived at similar symbolic solutions. The spiral for journey or vortex appears in Celtic knots, Minoan pottery, and Maori tattoo art because it is an intuitive representation of a fundamental experience. When we re-examine artifacts like the Babylonian Imago Mundi through this lens, its symbolism deepens. Babylon at the center is not just a political statement, it is the axis mundi of their world. The bitter river surrounding it is the universal water symbol, marking the boundary of order. This decoding effort turns our gaze eastward to an artifact that masterfully blends this symbolic language with what appears to be startlingly literal precision, a chart that seems to map the heavens with the mind of an engineer and the soul of a poet. Silk whispers of a world united. In the year 1389, as Europe was still slowly emerging from the shadows of the plague, master cartographers in the Ming dynasty court were completing a work of staggering ambition. Known as the Ming Hun Yi Tu, the amalgamated map of the Great Ming Empire, it is painted on a single, continuous sheet of silk over 12 feet long. To unroll it is to witness a zenith of cartographic thought, a view of the world seen through Chinese eyes at the height of their power. This is not a symbolic Mappamundi centered on Jerusalem. This is a practical, administrative document, yet its scope is breathtaking. It depicts the entirety of Eurasia, from Korea in the east to the Atlantic coast of Africa in the west, and from the steppes of Siberia down to the islands of Java. For a map created decades before Vasco da Gama sailed, its representation of Africa's southern tip is remarkably suggestive, and the shape of Europe, while compressed, is unmistakably present. How was such a comprehensive vision possible? The answer lies in the piece that preceded it. The map is a direct beneficiary of the Pax Mongolica. the century of relative stability enforced by the Mongol Empire across the Silk Road. For the first time in history, a continuous land corridor stretched from the Pacific to the Mediterranean, allowing not just goods but knowledge to flow freely. Chinese, Persian, Arab, and even fragmentary European geographic data could be compiled in a single imperial archive. The Ming cartographers were synthesizers, weaving these disparate threads into a single, coherent tapestry. Their methodology was profoundly systematic. The map employs a precise graticule of grid lines, a coordinate system that allowed for the measured placement of cities, rivers, and mountain ranges. This was cartography as statecraft, a tool for understanding and administering what they perceived as the civilized world. China, of course, occupies the center, rendered in meticulous detail, its provinces and river systems carefully recorded. But the map's true genius is its treatment of the world beyond. Europe is labeled with names derived from Persian and Arabic sources, like Fulang for Frank or Europe itself. Africa shows the great inland empires of the Sudan and notes the coastal trading cities of the Swahili coast, knowledge almost certainly gained through Indian Ocean trade networks. This single artifact dismantles the notion that advanced scientific mapmaking was a European invention. Here, in brilliant color on silk, is proof of a parallel tradition of rigorous geography, one that saw the world as a connected whole long before the age of discovery. The Ming Hun Yi Tu is more than a map. It is a fossilized moment of exchange. It suggests that by the late 14th century, a sophisticated, intercontinental understanding of world geography was not just possible, it was being actively compiled in at least one imperial capital. This forces a profound and tantalizing question. If the Ming could achieve this synthesis using sources from the Mongol era, what older sources might those Silk Road caravans and observatories have had access to? The map feels complete, but its very existence hints at layers of lost knowledge that fed its creation, geographic whispers from civilizations even more ancient, whose own maps have long since turned to dust. It stands as a silent witness to a world that was far more interconnected than we often remember, a world where the lines on a map were drawn not from one perspective, but from many, woven together on a single, silent sheet of silk. A dragon's tail curls around the edge of the known world. For the medieval mind, these creatures were not fantasy, they were geography. The phrase "here be dragons" is a powerful symbol, but it is only the most famous example of a universal cartographic language. On the edges of ancient and medieval maps, the blank spaces were not left empty, they were filled with the beasts, wonders, and kingdoms of legend. This was not a failure of knowledge, but a profound expression of it. The mapmaker's duty was to depict the world as it was understood, and that understanding seamlessly wove together the observed and the imagined, the charted coast and the whispered story. These mythical insertions served a crucial purpose. They were symbols that conveyed vital information to the viewer. A sea serpent coiling in an ocean passage might warn of treacherous currents or the presence of large, unfamiliar marine life. A griffin guarding a mountain range could signify a territory considered impassable or sacred. The map was a complete encyclopedia of the age, where folklore served as the legend for the terra incognita. One of the most stunning examples is the Carta Marina, published in 1539 by Swedish cartographer Olaus Magnus. This magnificent map of northern Europe is a teeming bestiary. Its waters are crowded with monstrous creatures engaged in violent struggle. Modern scholars looking at these images often see not pure invention, but possibly distorted accounts of real marine animals. A giant, coiled serpent with a horse-like head could be a sailor's exaggerated description of a walrus or a rogue wave. A beast spouting water might represent a breaching whale, its blowhole misinterpreted as a fountain of danger. These monsters codified the very real perils of the northern seas, transforming a sailor's tale into a cartographic warning label. Beyond beasts, entire mythical lands held fixed places on the map for centuries. The Garden of Eden was often shown as a real, located place in the distant east, the source of the 4 great rivers. The wealthy Christian kingdom of Prester John was diligently sought in both Asia and Africa, a hopeful political fantasy given cartographic form. The Hyperboreans, a mythical race of giants living in a land of eternal sunshine beyond the north wind, were a standard feature in classical geography. Including these realms was a statement of philosophical and religious truth, as critical to the map's function as the outline of Spain or Italy. This practice preserved folklore, but it may have done something more subtle. It could have encoded real locations through allegory. A land of giants might refer to a place where the inhabitants were notably tall, or where ancient, colossal ruins stood. A river of gold could point to a region known for placer deposits in its silt. The mythical became a layer of meaning, a way to pass on knowledge that was considered too sensitive, too sacred, or simply too complex for a simple line drawing. To separate this intricate blend of fact and folklore, we cannot look only at the pictures. We must look beneath them to the hidden geometry, the mathematical skeleton upon which the beautiful, monstrous skin was stretched. The presence of a dragon tells us about fear, but the placement of a city, even a mythical one, might reveal a forgotten calculation. The most profound maps are not drawn on parchment, but etched into the very placement of stones beneath an open sky. Beneath the dragons and the decorative flourishes of ancient cartography lies a hidden skeleton of pure mathematics, a silent language of circles, squares, and sacred ratios. This was not decoration, it was a foundational belief that the cosmos itself was constructed according to divine geometry, and that human creations, from temples to territories, should mirror this celestial order. The Greek philosopher Pythagoras taught that all reality was number, and this idea resonated across the ancient world. To build a city, to lay out a temple complex, or to chart a landscape was to participate in a cosmic blueprint. This practice is known as geomancy, the art of aligning human structures with perceived terrestrial energies or celestial directions. It is where geography meets geometry in the service of something greater than mere navigation. Consider the Great Pyramid of Giza. Its sides are aligned with the 4 cardinal directions with an accuracy of a fraction of a degree. More stunningly, the layout of the 3 main pyramids mirrors the 3 stars of Orion's belt, as they would have appeared in the sky around 2500 before the Common Era. This is not a vague resemblance, it is a precise, scaled-down reflection of the heavens on earth. Was this an attempt to anchor the pharaoh's divine journey to the stars in stone, or could it also be a permanent, monumental coordinate, a fixed point in a vast, sky-based map? Across the ocean in Britain, the debate takes a terrestrial form. The concept of ley lines, popularized in the early 20th century, suggests that many ancient sites, from stone circles to burial mounds and old churches, fall along straight alignments that stretch for miles across the countryside. While mainstream archaeology often attributes these alignments to chance or to practical factors like ridgetop pathways, the persistence of the idea speaks to a human instinct. When you stand at one Neolithic monument and see another on the distant horizon, it feels intentional. It feels like a connection. Whether these lines represent forgotten trade routes, ritual procession paths, or something more esoteric, they hint at a landscape that was carefully read and marked, not randomly populated. This mathematical intentionality transforms how we see these places. A solitary standing stone is not just a marker, it becomes a vertex in a vast, invisible geometric web. A circle is not just an enclosure, it is a model of the cyclical heavens. The golden ratio, a mathematical proportion found throughout nature and celebrated in classical art and architecture, may have been consciously used to lay out sacred spaces, creating a harmony that was felt as much as it was calculated. This suggests the mapmakers of antiquity were engaged in a dual project. The practical surveyor, measuring distances and sighting lines, was also a spiritual geometer, encoding cosmological truths into the land itself. Their maps, therefore, served a dual purpose. Yes, they could guide a traveler from one point to another, but on a deeper level, they were guides to understanding, diagrams that explained humanity's place within a grand geometric universe. The lines on the ground were prayers, equations, and pathways all at once. This revelation forces the final, most compelling question of our journey. If these ancient charts and aligned monuments were so rich with layered meaning, what was their ultimate, overarching purpose? Were they truly meant for the living traveler, or for a voyage of an entirely different kind? A map of Britain drawn around 1360 is so accurate you could almost navigate with it today. This is the Gough Map, named for the antiquarian who once owned it, and it is our seventh enigma. Painted on two pieces of parchment sewn together, it is the earliest surviving map to show the island in a form we would instantly recognize. A long, tapering landmass with Scotland pointing north and Wales bulging to the west. Its precision is startling for its time. Distances between towns along a spiderweb of red lines representing roads are remarkably close to correct. Over 600 places are named, from major cities like London and York to tiny villages, many of which are connected by those measured routes. This is not a spiritual diagram or a symbolic cosmos. This is a practical tool, a snapshot of 14th century Britain meant for use, and that practicality is the source of its deepest mystery. Who made it, and what sources, now utterly lost, did they have on their desk? The map is anonymous, its origins shrouded. Scholars believe it was likely compiled for administrative or legal purposes, perhaps by a royal clerk or a traveling judge who needed to understand the lay of the land. But the compiler did not survey the entire island on horseback. They were a synthesizer working from older documents. The most probable sources are the remnants of Roman knowledge. The Romans, during their 4th-century occupation of Britain, were master surveyors and road builders. They created detailed itineraries, lists of places, and the distances between them along their famous straight roads. Fragments of this knowledge likely survived in monastic libraries or in local tradition, giving the Gough Map its sturdy backbone of measured distance. Another potential source is the Domesday Book, the Great Survey of England commissioned by William the Conqueror in 1086. While not a map, this vast inventory of landholdings, towns, and resources provided a textual database of place names and relative locations that a skilled cartographer could have translated into spatial relationships. The Gough Map represents a quiet revolution. It marks a decisive shift away from the symbolic Mundi, where Jerusalem is the center of faith, toward the practical roadmap, where London is the center of commerce and governance. Here, geography serves power and daily life, not theology. Rivers are drawn for travel and trade, mountains are sketched as obstacles, and the roads are the true focus, pulsing like red veins across the parchment. Yet, for all its practicality, this map also reveals how quickly knowledge fades. Even in a region as well documented as medieval Britain, the trail of its sources runs cold within a few centuries. The Roman itineraries it may have used are gone. The local knowledge it codified was pre-literate, passed down until someone finally thought to draw it. The Gough Map, in its crisp detail, is a testament to a murky, oral past it helped to eclipse. It showcases the dual nature we have seen throughout this journey, the map as a spiritual model of the cosmos, and the map as a practical guide to the road ahead. Both impulses lived in the ancient world, often in the same culture, sometimes even in the same document. To understand how one mind could hold both a sacred geometry and a merchant's ledger, we must finally venture beyond the parchment and stone, into the consciousness of the mapmaker themselves. The hunter sees not a wasteland but a library written in snowdrift and wind. To navigate the vast, white silence of the Arctic tundra, an Inuit hunter does not rely on a compass. He reads the shape of snow dunes sculpted by the prevailing wind, the subtle texture of ice underfoot, the direction a lone bird flies at dusk. His map is not an object he carries, it is a living model inside his mind, constantly updated by his senses and his ancestors' stories. This is the cognitive map, and it is the fundamental key to unlocking how ancient peoples charted their world. It is a mental representation of space built from experience, memory, and narrative, a way of knowing that is profoundly different from the abstract grid of modern geography. To understand the mapmakers of antiquity, we must first learn to see through their eyes. Across the world, in the red heart of Australia, this concept finds one of its most beautiful expressions. For Aboriginal cultures, the entire continent is crisscrossed by songlines or dreaming tracks. These are not physical paths, but epic song cycles that describe the journeys of ancestral creator beings during the dreamtime. Every landmark, every waterhole, every mountain and river is a verse in this endless song. An elder does not merely walk from one place to another, he sings his way across the country. The melody and rhythm hold the directions, the turns, the locations of resources, and the sacred stories of how that landscape came to be. As anthropologist Dr. Bruce Chatwin described, the land itself is a musical score, and walking it is an act of recreation, of keeping the world alive through memory and performance. This is a map where geography and mythology are inseparable, where to know a place is to know its story. This narrative-based wayfinding is not primitive, it is incredibly sophisticated and effective. It encodes vast amounts of practical information in a form that is both memorable and transmissible across generations without writing. The songline tells you that after the 3 sandstone outcrops, you turn where the ancestor fought the serpent, and there you will find the hidden spring. The story gives the direction a meaning that a simple arrow on a chart never could. It connects the traveler emotionally and spiritually to the journey, making the map a lived experience rather than a detached set of instructions. Expert researchers note that these cognitive systems are perfectly adapted to their environments, containing millennia of accumulated ecological wisdom within their rhythms and verses. This stands in stark contrast to the way most of us perceive space today. Our modern, Euclidean view sees the world as an empty grid to be measured and plotted, a neutral stage upon which events occur. Distance is a number, a kilometer or a mile. Direction is an angle 90 degrees east. Our maps are abstractions removed from the sensory reality of the place itself. The ancient cognitive map, however, was holistic and storied. It did not separate distance from time or geography from genealogy. A journey was measured in days sung, not in miles walked. A mountain was not just a topographic feature, it was the resting place of a great ancestor. This is the mental landscape from which our ancient mapmakers likely operated. When they finally translated their internal, cognitive maps onto clay, parchment, or stone, they were not creating a mere tool for navigation. They were creating a cultural artifact, a physical embodiment of their worldview. A map might prioritize the location of a sacred grove over a more practical trading post, because the grove's spiritual significance was paramount. A coastline might be distorted to fit a cosmological principle, like the belief in a circular world ocean. The purpose was not just to show where things are, but to show what they mean. This creates a fascinating tension with some of the precise technical details we see in controversial artifacts. How do we reconcile a narrative, meaning-filled worldview with the seemingly mathematical accuracy of a star chart or a measured itinerary? The answer may lie in the concept of different layers of knowledge. The same culture that used songlines for spiritual and communal wayfinding could also develop precise astronomical observatories to track seasons, because both served the ultimate goal of sustaining life and understanding their place in the cosmos. The practical surveyor and the story singer could be the same person, his mind capable of holding both the measured pace of a journey and the mythic song that gave that journey its soul. The physical maps that survive, then, might be rare intersections where these two ways of knowing briefly fused, where a sacred geometry was used to plot a landscape dense with story. This blending of narrative mind and observing eye brings us to the final, overarching question that seeks to tie all these threads together into one grand, unified vision of the prehistoric world. Stonehenge stands aligned to the solstice, but 12,000 miles away, another circle echoes its purpose. The great stone ring of Nabta in the Egyptian desert, built over 1,000 years before the pyramids, also tracks the summer sun. On opposite sides of the world, separated by vast oceans and millennia, cultures with no known contact arrived at a similar architectural solution to mark the heavens. This pattern of eerie parallels is the heart of our eighth and final enigma. It asks the most provocative question of all: could the advanced cartographic knowledge hinted at in later maps have a single, forgotten source? This is the hypothesis of a lost civilization, a culture so ancient its name has vanished, but whose legacy may be written in stone and star chart across the globe. Writers like Graham Hancock have popularized this idea, pointing to a constellation of archaeological anomalies that defy simple timelines. Sites like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, with its massive, intricately carved pillars erected by hunter-gatherers around 9,600 before the Common Era, suggest a social complexity and symbolic thought far earlier than once believed. Underwater structures like the Yonaguni Monument off the coast of Japan, with its stark, stepped terraces, fuel speculation about landscapes submerged by rising seas at the end of the last ice age. Proponents of this view weave these disparate threads into a grand narrative. They propose that a sophisticated global culture flourished during a climatically stable period, perhaps before the sudden cold snap known as the Younger Dryas around 12,800 years ago. This culture, they argue, possessed advanced knowledge of astronomy, geometry, and seafaring. When their world was shattered by a cataclysmic event, likely a rapid rise in sea levels, the survivors scattered. These refugees, the theory goes, became the revered gods or culture bringers of later mythologies, the Sumerian Apkallu, the Egyptian Osiris, the Vedic Manu, who bestowed the seeds of civilization, including the secrets of agriculture, architecture, and crucially, navigation and mapping. The shared global flood myths are seen not as coincidence, but as a collective memory of this real event. The precise astronomical alignments in monuments from Mexico to Cambodia, and the seemingly anachronistic geographic data in medieval portlands are interpreted as fragmented inheritances from this lost world school of knowledge. Mainstream archaeology offers a powerful counterargument rooted in the principle of independent invention. Scholars emphasize that humans are ingenious problem solvers. Faced with the same fundamental challenges, tracking seasons, navigating terrain, building shelters, different cultures in isolation can and did arrive at remarkably similar solutions. The pyramid form is a stable way to build tall, and many cultures independently discovered it. Aligning a structure to the solstice is a direct, observable way to anchor a calendar, a need for any agricultural society. The absence of any direct, unambiguous evidence, like a piece of technology or a written record clearly linking these distant sites, is considered the theory's greatest weakness. The artifacts we have show steady, local evolution, not a sudden infusion of finished knowledge. Yet, even if one dismisses the idea of a single progenitor civilization, the enigma performs a vital service. It forces a rigorous re-evaluation of human prehistory. It asks us to look harder at the gaps in our understanding and to consider more fluid models. Perhaps the truth lies not in a lone Atlantis, but in a previously underestimated web of prehistoric exchange. Could there have been a loose, sporadic, global network of contact, facilitated by periods of lower sea levels and a more adventurous spirit than we credit to ancient mariners? Knowledge of a coastline, a star path, or a building technique could have traveled along this fragile web, transmitted over generations, morphing with each telling, but preserving a core of practical truth. This network would not have been an empire, but a whisper chain spanning continents, where ideas moved as slowly as the continents themselves, but move they did. The hypothesis, in its boldest form, challenges us to expand our sense of human potential. It suggests that the story of civilization may be far older, more interconnected, and more complex than the traditional narrative allows. Whether you find it compelling or not, it transforms every mysterious alignment and every anomalous map from a curiosity into a potential clue. We are left not with an answer, but with a richer, more mysterious landscape of questions. And it is within that landscape that we must now attempt to draw our final, tentative conclusions. The silent stones of Göbekli Tepe and the pyramids of Giza speak to a profound human capacity, but do they speak to each other? This question lies at the very heart of the academic debate that gives meaning to all our enigmatic maps. On one side stands the powerful theory of independent invention, the traditional view that has shaped archaeology for generations. It argues that human creativity is a universal spark. When different cultures, separated by vast oceans and mountain ranges, faced similar challenges, they naturally arrived at similar solutions. The need to track seasons could lead both the Maya and the Egyptians to develop sophisticated calendars. The desire to build monumental, stable structures could lead multiple societies to discover the pyramid form. In this view, the precise astronomical alignments found from Britain to Cambodia are not evidence of a shared teacher, but a testament to the shared genius of the human mind, observing the same sky and drawing logical, parallel conclusions. This perspective emphasizes the slow, steady, local evolution of technology and thought, visible in the archaeological record. It cautions against leaping to connections where none may exist, reminding us that coincidence is a powerful force in a world of limited architectural forms and celestial events. Challenging this orthodoxy is the diffusionist perspective, a school of thought that sees the currents of connection flowing beneath the surface of history. Its proponents look at the constellation of parallels and ask if the odds of such precise, repeated similarities are truly a matter of chance. They point not just to broad ideas like pyramids, but to startlingly specific details. The use of a standard unit of measurement, like the megalithic yard, appearing in ancient structures thousands of miles apart, the recurring symbolic motif of the feathered serpent, found in Mesoamerican art and in the dragon myths of Asia. The uncanny resemblance between the step pyramids of Mesopotamia, called ziggurats, and those of the Americas. Diffusionists argue that these echoes are too loud to ignore. They propose that ideas, like seeds, were carried by the winds of trade, migration, or even catastrophic dispersal. A ship blown off course, a group of travelers settling in a new land, a story told and retold along a trade route. These fragile threads could have woven a thin, global web of knowledge transmission long before our written histories began. Weighing the evidence for both sides requires a careful balance. Academia rightly values caution and demands robust, verifiable proof before redrawing the maps of human history. The absence of a smoking gun, a clearly identifiable artifact from one culture found in an undisturbed layer of another, is a significant hurdle for diffusionism. Scholars of independent invention argue that human psychology and the constraints of physics and environment naturally channel innovation down similar paths. Yet, the diffusionist response is equally compelling. They ask if our standards of proof are unfairly stacked against pre-literate, seafaring cultures whose primary records, maps on perishable materials, would have vanished millennia ago. Could the evidence we seek have literally dissolved in seawater or rotted in a tropical climate, leaving only the most durable stone alignments as cryptic clues? This debate is not merely academic. It changes how we interpret every artifact we have explored. Is the Piri Reis map a corrupted copy of an ancient global source chart, preserved through a secret chain of transmission, as diffusion might suggest? Or is it a brilliant medieval synthesis, an independent work of speculative geography that just happened to guess a coastline it could not possibly have known? The answer you lean toward shapes the entire narrative. It determines whether you see a world of isolated geniuses or a world of ancient conversation, fragmented and faint but never fully silent. This intellectual conflict prepares us for the final, most delicate task: to gather these scattered fragments, these disputed maps and aligned stones, and see if, even for a moment, they can be arranged into a picture that makes a new kind of sense. 40,000 years ago, a human hand pressed against a cave wall, leaving a print beside a spray of painted dots. Those dots may be the oldest map we will ever find, a chart not of land, but of the night sky as it was seen by minds alive during the last ice age. This is where our proposed timeline begins, not with parchment but with perception. In the Upper Paleolithic, the first great cartographers were the storytellers and shamans. Their medium was memory and myth. They developed cognitive star maps, encoding the movements of constellations into oral traditions that guided seasonal migrations and explained the cosmos. The landscape itself became a canvas. The petroglyphs at sites like Lascaux or Chauvet, with their animals and symbols, may have served a dual purpose, as spiritual icons and as territorial markers, creating the earliest durable records of a people's relationship with their world. This was cartography as lived experience, a deep, sensory understanding of place passed from generation to generation through song and symbol. With the dawn of the Neolithic Revolution, around 10,000 years before the Common Era, the human relationship with the land transformed. As communities settled to farm, they began to alter the landscape with intention. This is the era of the megalithic surveyors. Sites like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey or the early phases of Stonehenge in Britain were not just temples. They were precisely engineered observatories, calibrated to track solstices, equinoxes, and lunar cycles. We can view these stone rings as permanent survey points, fixed nodes in a growing cognitive network. By erecting a circle aligned to the midsummer sunrise, a community created a reliable, year-after-year reference point. This allowed for the standardization of time and, by extension, the measurement of space. The proliferation of such sites across Europe and beyond suggests a spreading knowledge of practical astronomy and geometry, a toolkit necessary for larger-scale territorial planning and potentially for creating the first regional maps. This foundational knowledge could have reached a functional zenith in the Bronze Age, from around 3000 to 1200 before the Common Era. This was the age of the first great trading empires, the Minoans of Crete, the Indus Valley civilization, the Phoenicians of the Levant. These were maritime cultures whose wealth and power depended on safe, reliable passage across open water. It is here, in this era, that we can plausibly place the development of the first true sea charts, crafted on perishable materials like treated animal hide or papyrus. These would have been detailed periply, showing coastlines, harbors, currents, and celestial guides for specific routes. The Minoan frescoes depicting vibrant seascapes hint at a culture intimately familiar with the sea. The standardized weights and measures of the Indus Valley suggest a society capable of precise quantification. These functional charts, the crown jewels of mercantile and state power, were likely guarded secrets. Their very utility and fragility meant that almost none would survive the collapse of the civilizations that created them. Their existence is inferred, a ghost in the historical record, but their loss explains the later appearance of seemingly anachronistic data. Then, the timeline encounters a profound rupture. Around 12,800 years ago, the Earth experienced a sudden, severe cold snap known as the Younger Dryas. The cause is still debated, with some scientists proposing a comet or asteroid impact event. Whatever the trigger, the climatic chaos was global. Sea levels already rising from the end of the last ice age may have surged in catastrophic pulses. This period represents a plausible horizon for a great reset. Coastal settlements, river valleys, and entire island landscapes that had been home to communities for millennia were swallowed by the waves. With them vanished not just people but their accumulated knowledge, their stories of routes and stars, their carefully guarded charts. The survivors, scattered and struggling, carried only fragments, the core myths of a great flood and a lost golden age. The advanced, systematic cartography of a potential global network was shattered, broken into pieces and scattered across the continents. What remained entered a long twilight of preservation and corruption. The shards of this ancient geography were picked up and repurposed by the classical scholars who came later. A Greek philosopher like Pythagoras might have encountered geometric concepts preserved in Egyptian temple schools, concepts far older than Egypt itself. A medieval Arab geographer like Al-Idrisi might have copied a coastline from a Roman scroll, which was itself a copy of a Phoenician periplus, which might have drawn on a map from the Bronze Age. With each copying, errors crept in. Speculation filled the gaps, myth and measurement blurred. This process of fragmentation and Chinese whispers over millennia could explain the baffling contradictions in maps like the Piri Reis, where stunningly accurate contours sit beside obvious errors, where the ghost of an ancient chart peeks through a medieval interpretation. This proposed chronology is not a proven fact. It is a framework, a story woven from the threads of evidence we have explored, from the star maps of the cave to the silk maps of the Ming. It connects the cognitive to the concrete, the megalithic to the maritime, and the cataclysm to the copyist. It provides an arc that makes sense of the enigmas, not by solving them, but by placing them in a possible sequence of human discovery, loss, and stumbling rediscovery. If this timeline holds even a shadow of truth, it changes the questions we ask. We stop looking for a single lost city and start looking for a lost process of global learning. With this narrative in mind, how do we move from speculation to investigation? What tools do we now have to test this framework and either refine it or replace it with something closer to the truth our ancestors knew? A laser pulse from an aircraft sees through the dense canopy of the Amazon. Where the human eye perceives only an unbroken green wilderness, the LiDAR scanner reveals a hidden geometry etched into the Earth itself. Vast circles, squares, and interconnected roads form a colossal pattern, a landscape engineered by a sophisticated society we are only beginning to comprehend. This is the new frontier in our search for the mapmakers of antiquity. Not with shovels and brushes alone, but with technology that allows us to see the invisible. We are no longer limited to speculation. We can now gather data from the sky, the soil, and the seafloor, transforming whispers into testable hypotheses. The first revolution is in how we see the land. Ground-penetrating radar sends pulses into the Earth, revealing the outlines of buried structures without moving a single stone. In places like the British countryside, this technology maps entire subterranean complexes near known stone circles, suggesting these sites were not isolated temples, but the centers of bustling ceremonial landscapes. We can now trace the full extent of ancient settlements, their boundaries, and their relationship to natural features, building a precise, layered understanding of how a culture organized its territory. This is the physical skeleton of their cognitive map. Above the ground, archaeoastronomy provides the celestial clock. Powerful software can rewind the night sky to any date in human history. calculating the precise rising and setting points of stars, the sun, and the moon with flawless accuracy. Researchers can now test with mathematical certainty whether the central axis of a temple in Cambodia truly aligned with a specific star on the founding day of the kingdom. We can model the sunlight entering a passage tomb in Ireland to see if it illuminates a sacred stone only on the winter solstice. This moves alignment theories from poetic suggestion to quantifiable fact, revealing which connections were intentional and which are mere coincidence. It allows us to read the sky map they were following, but perhaps the most promising and challenging frontier lies beneath the waves. Deep sea archaeology, with its remotely operated vehicles and advanced sonar, offers the potential to find the very libraries we have been missing. The most likely place to discover a physical ancient map is not in a dry tomb, but in the silt-preserved hold of a sunken ship. A Phoenician or Minoan vessel, carrying a captain's precious periplus on treated leather or wax tablets, could lie intact in the cold, dark, oxygen-poor depths of the Mediterranean. Finding such a wreck and its navigational artifacts would be a discovery to rival the Rosetta Stone. Similarly, scanning continental shelves for submerged structures could locate the ports and trading hubs of coastal cultures that vanished when sea levels rose, giving context to the flood myths and providing fixed points for their lost coastal charts. On a smaller scale, science offers microscopic insights. Isotopic analysis involves studying the chemical fingerprints locked inside artifacts. By analyzing the strontium isotopes in a piece of pottery or the oxygen isotopes in a glass bead, scientists can often pinpoint the specific region where the materials originated. This traces ancient trade routes with empirical evidence. A jade axe found in Britain with a chemical signature matching the Alps is a silent map of a long-distance exchange network. Similarly, multispectral imaging can be used on fragile parchments like the Vinland Map. By photographing the document under different wavelengths of light, researchers can sometimes see beneath the surface ink, detecting erased sketches, earlier drafts, or annotations that reveal the process of its creation and the potential layers of sources it compiled. These tools do not hand us easy answers. A LiDAR scan shows the geometric earthworks, but it cannot tell us their meaning. An isotopic signature proves trade, but not the story of the trader. What these technologies provide is something far more valuable, a way to replace guesswork with evidence. They allow us to ask sharper, more precise questions. Instead of wondering if ancient cultures could map the stars, we can now calculate exactly which stars they were tracking and with what degree of precision. Instead of debating whether transoceanic contact was possible, we can search the ocean floor for physical proof and analyze artifacts for biological evidence of such journeys. The scientific method, with its demand for testability and reproducibility, has become our most powerful lens for examining these prehistoric puzzles. It tempers the grand narratives with data, forcing both skeptics and proponents to refine their arguments in the face of emerging facts. This technological revolution shifts the quest from a search for a single lost civilization to a meticulous reconstruction of a lost interconnectedness. We are piecing together a global jigsaw puzzle where each new scan, each isotopic profile, and each sonar return is a potential piece. The ultimate goal is no longer just to find a map, but to understand the mind that drew it, the needs that shaped it, and the world it attempted to describe. This brings us to the final and most human question of all. Beyond the thrill of discovery, what do we truly gain from solving these ancient cartographic mysteries? A map is more than a tool. It is a testament to a mind that can hold an entire world within itself. So what does it mean to discover that this capacity, this drive to chart the unknown, is woven so deeply into our past? It challenges a fundamental story we tell ourselves about progress. We often imagine human history as a steady, upward climb from primitive survival to complex thought. Yet these artifacts suggest that the leap into abstract spatial reasoning, into projecting a three-dimensional world onto a two-dimensional surface, happened not at the end of our journey, but very near its beginning. This reframes our entire narrative. It means that alongside the invention of the spear and the control of fire, we were also inventing the conceptual landscape. The human mind was not just solving immediate problems of hunger and shelter, it was quietly, persistently solving the problem of where we are in the cosmos. This reveals an ingenuity and a resilience that is humbling. It speaks to a drive to explore that is not a luxury of advanced civilization, but a core component of what makes us human. Cognitive scientists like Stephen Mithen describe a crucial development in the human mind, a quality called cognitive fluidity. This is the ability to connect different domains of knowledge that were once separate. It is what allows a person to look at a star and see both a divine being and a navigation beacon, to see a mountain as both a physical obstacle and the home of a spirit, to blend the practical, the social, and the spiritual into a single, coherent understanding. The map is perhaps the purest product of this cognitive fluidity. It is where the measured distance meets the mythic journey, where the coastline drawn for the fisherman also marks the edge of the known universe for the priest. These ancient cartographers were not just technicians, they were integrators of reality. They demonstrate that our ancestors did not live in a world divided into the sacred and the profane, the practical and the poetic. For them, these realms flowed together, and their maps were the channels. This realization carries a sobering corollary. The very sophistication of these early minds makes the loss of their knowledge not just an archaeological mystery, but a profound parable. It underscores the breathtaking fragility of civilization itself. Every library can burn, every oral tradition can fall silent with the passing of a final elder. Every chart on treated hide can dissolve in seawater. The great works of any age, no matter how advanced, are perpetually balanced on the edge of oblivion, preserved only by the determined, often fragile, chain of transmission from one generation to the next. Our rediscovery of their traces, then, is more than an academic exercise. It is an act of reconnection. It stitches us back into a lineage of curiosity that spans tens of thousands of years. When we puzzle over the same stars they used as guides, or stand in awe before the same monumental alignments they built, we are not just studying history. We are participating in the same fundamental human project, the relentless, beautiful endeavor to make sense of our place in a vast and mysterious world. This shared heritage of exploration binds us to those ancient wayfinders in a way that transcends culture or epoch. Their drive is our drive. Their questions are, in essence, still our questions. By seeking to understand their maps, we ultimately come to understand a deeper, more enduring map, the one charted on the contours of the human spirit itself. This journey from specific artifact to universal theme leaves us not at an ending, but at a new beginning, poised to look forward with the wisdom of the past illuminating the path ahead. The greatest discoveries often lie not in the field but forgotten on a shelf. While we scan the skies and the seas with new technology, some of the most profound answers may be waiting patiently in the quiet, dusty archives of the world. In the labyrinthine libraries of Istanbul's Topkapi Palace, uncatalogued manuscripts from the Ottoman era could contain copies of lost Arab portolan charts, themselves translations of Byzantine or even older Greek sailing directions. Deep within the Vatican's secret archives, a scholar might one day uncover a medieval copy of a Roman itinerary that details a voyage beyond the Pillars of Hercules, a document preserved not for its geography, but filed away in a theological dispute. In China's vast imperial collections, beyond the famous Ming Hun Yi Tu, there may lie scrolls from the Tang or Song dynasties recording tributary missions from lands that do not appear on any modern map of the time. These repositories are time capsules, and we have only begun to read their tables of contents. Beyond the written word, the Earth itself holds archives written in a different language. The shifting sands of the Sahara Desert are slowly revealing a green past, a time when rivers cut through savannas and supported cultures now buried under dunes. Satellite imagery already shows the ghosts of ancient lakes and riverbeds, and beneath those dry channels could lie settlements of a people who mapped a world that is now a wasteland. In the Siberian permafrost, the frozen ground acts as a perfect preservative. As the climate slowly changes, it may yield organic artifacts impossible to find elsewhere: a wooden tablet with carved routes, a leather satchel holding star charts drawn on bark, the personal kit of a prehistoric wayfinder frozen in time. These remote regions are not empty, they are simply unread, each dune and each thawing layer a page in a global manuscript we are just learning to decipher. The adventure continues beneath the waves and ice. Ambitious scientific projects are now turning speculative theory into systematic search. New satellite radar surveys are meticulously mapping the bedrock of Antarctica beneath its miles-thick ice sheet, creating the first truly accurate chart of the continent's real shape. As this data becomes public, cartographers and historians will be able to compare these subglacial contours directly with the coastlines on controversial maps like the Piri Reis, moving the debate from vague resemblance to precise, point-by-point analysis. Meanwhile, in the world's shallow continental shelves, robotic submersibles are conducting archaeological surveys in areas that were dry land during the last ice age. They are not looking for a mythical Atlantis, but for the very real, drowned landscapes where our ancestors lived, hunted, and likely traveled. Finding a single submerged campsite with evidence of seafaring could redraw our entire understanding of prehistoric mobility and the age of exploration. This is the exhilarating truth: the story of the ancient mapmakers is still being written. The next great enigma is not lost, it is waiting. It could be a parchment discovered in a monastery restoration next year, a LiDAR scan of a jungle plateau revealing a geometric pattern that mirrors the stars, or a sonar ping echoing off a man-made structure on a sunken coastline. Every time a new technology is invented, we gain a new lens through which to re-examine our past. The search itself is a form of modern mapmaking, a collective effort to chart the vast, unknown territories of human history. We are the latest link in that chain of curiosity, using our tools to ask the same questions that inspired a star watcher 40,000 years ago, or a sailor sketching a new coast on a piece of treated hide. The map is never complete, and that is the most hopeful discovery of all. Their world was defined not by borders but by stories written in stone and sky. We have journeyed from the clay tablets of Babylon to the star paths of Polynesia, from the contested lines of the Piri Reis map to the silent symbols etched in global stone. Through each enigma, a pattern emerges. The mapmakers of antiquity were not a single, lost civilization, but a vast and diverse tapestry of human ingenuity. They were the shamans who painted the stars on cave walls, the sailors who memorized the rhythm of ocean swells, the traders who guarded their routes as state secrets, and the priests who aligned temples to the solstice sun. Each, in their own way, dared to define their world long before the written record began. They worked with the tools they had, transforming lived experience, celestial observation, and deep myth into guides for both the body and the spirit. Their legacy is not a single, perfect chart waiting to be found. It is a chorus of fragments, a puzzle where the pieces are scattered across continents and buried in the sediment of time. While many mysteries remain unresolved, the very existence of these fragments challenges a narrow view of progress. It asks us to expand our understanding of prehistoric human achievement, to see in these efforts not primitive scratching, but the profound birth of abstract thought. The cartographer John Noble Wilford once wrote that maps codify the miracle of existence. These ancient charts, whether literal or symbolic, are precisely that. They are testaments to that miracle across millennia, records of a relentless human drive to answer the most fundamental questions. Where are we? What surrounds us? And how do we find our way within it all? I encourage you to look at a modern world map with new eyes. See in the contour of a coastline not just a political boundary, but the ghostly outline of a coastline first sketched from the deck of a wooden ship millennia ago. See in the grid of city streets a distant echo of the geometric order ancient builders saw in the heavens. The conversation between humanity and the map is far from over. Every new scan of a jungle floor, every fresh analysis of a faded parchment, adds another line to this eternal story. If this exploration of lost worlds and silent knowledge has captivated you, there are countless more enigmas waiting. For deeper journeys into history's greatest puzzles, please subscribe. And I am truly curious which of these map-making mysteries lingers most in your mind. Was it the celestial sailors of the Pacific, the cryptic contours of the Piri Reis, or the global language of symbols carved in stone? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The map is never finished, and your perspective is the next point.